Thank you for taking a ride on the Freedom Train. I am your host, Joseph Ward, and as always, ride with me is my good friends, Mr. Patrick Irvin, Mr. Jamie Basham. Remember, PAX Inc. is sponsored by, the Freedom Train is sponsored by PAX Inc. That's PACTSINC, and PAX Inc. is a black advocacy organization aimed at developing the black community to its maximum potential through a focus on education and economics with the interest of hard work, honesty, and integrity. And for more information, make sure you visit www.pactsinc.org. And as always, remember, once you're on the website, make sure you click on the tab that says The Code so you can learn more about the codes of conduct that were created by PAX Inc. to help socialize black America into working as a cohesive unit once again. While you're online, make sure you visit our Freedom Train website at www.freedomtrainradio.com to learn more about our amazing guests, to hear the playbacks of these shows, and to learn more about myself, Patrick, and Jamie. You can follow us on Instagram at Freedom Train Network. Follow us on Twitter at follow us on Twitter at Freedom Train Net. Like our Freedom Train Facebook page. Subscribe to the Freedom Train on YouTube. So go to youtube.com/Freedom Train Network. And last but not least, make sure that you subscribe to the Freedom Train on iTunes or Google Play Music. And that way you can get the notifications coming right to your phone. And you can keep up with us and stay in the loop on what we got going on. Patrick, Jamie, what it is?
What's good, everybody?
Cool.
We need a checklist or something. That's a lot of stuff they got to do.
Yeah, it was.
Hey, man. You could choose either or. You ain't got. We're just giving them options. You know how we do.
I got you.
Jordan gave him every. Yeah, you can email us. You can call my house. You can show up at my house. I work
at a smoke signal, Pony Express. Send it by a pigeon. Whatever you need to do, we got you.
Joe is that overly friendly person at work.
I know, man. Hey, Charles, you want to come to the barbecue? No, Joseph. I told you this.
Hey, man, well, you're going to miss out on all this good barbecue over here. So once again, it's August, and we're still in our Mental Health Awareness Month. And so far, it's been going great. Make sure you all go to our Freedom Train YouTube channel as well as our Freedom Train Facebook page to check out the playbacks of our interviews as well as our PSAs that we have covering mental health. And speaking of our PSAs, before we get deep into what we have going on today with our interview, and before we introduce our guests, I want to go ahead and play another one of our PSAs, and then we're going to go ahead and get deep into what we have for you all today. So check it out.
Take the time to take care of our bodies, our looks, and even our money. We invest in our dreams, and we invest in other people. But we must invest more time and resources on taking care of our mental health. Truth is, we push mental health issues under the rug. We must change the way we perceive mental health and those that suffer from it. It is our responsibility to heal our community.
And that was Miss Alicia Hall helping us out with that PSA. So thank you, Alicia, for that. And Pat, Jamie, y'all ready to learn a little more about our guests, or a lot more about our guests?
Absolutely, man. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man, you better say that again like you excited.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
There you go.
Did that sound better?
That sound, for you, it was good for you.
See, Joe's starting already.
But on the show, I was looking through this young lady's website, and like I told her, I'm very impressed about what she has done in the past, what she was able to overcome, and what she's still doing. So we have Miss Evandra Catherine, who I'm going to call her Dr. Catherine because she's a full-time PhD student at Virginia Commonwealth, and her program is Special Education and Disability Policy. She's also a United States Air Force veteran. She's a social activist. She's a public speaker, and she's also 2015's Richmond, Virginia Top 40 Under 40. So she has been doing some great things in her life. She was able to overcome obstacles and still be strong enough to not just focus on herself, but give time to her people in her community. And, we don't really find people who can not be selfish, but people who are selfless, especially for the community that we have and the things that we're pushing forward. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you all Dr. Evandra Catherine. How you doing today, Evandra?
Hello, gentlemen. How are you all today?
We're good. Thank you. Oh yeah. We say it came. They had to come out for you. So, thank you for being on the Freedom Train.
I'm ready to ride this train.
Uh-oh.
Yes, ma'am. Well, you heard of Patrick. Well, it's on you. You got the first question. Let's do it.
All right. Well, so you've done a lot. As Joe has illustrated with what he read out, and it is very impressive. And in the middle of doing all of that, we find you here on the show to talk about mental health issues. Can you give our listeners some of the things that you've maybe gone through, or and some of the things that makes mental health awareness so important to you, for you?
Yeah, definitely. So, mental health is something that begins very, very early in life. And depending on what that experience is after the doctor spanks you on your bottom, it's pretty much how your mental health is going to be. And I was born into this world into some mess. So I spent pretty much 9 years of my 18 childhood years homeless. And I've experienced a lot of trauma due to that. Physical trauma. I've been sexually abused multiple times by multiple people, all the way up to the age of 15 years old, probably even 18 if I consider all situations. And I was raised with no family at all whatsoever. So I've been alone most of my life, and literally alone most of my life. I've come across many people as friends and things like that whose parents, would take me in, etc. But really, I really was a loner. I was raised alone. And at 18, I went to the Air Force, as was mentioned, to escape, really, homelessness and abuse and trauma. And so going from a life of no structure to complete structure was when my mental health became a problem. So the Air Force is where I was diagnosed with a mental health illness, and I didn't really know that I had one at all. I didn't know what mental health really was. I didn't know anything about depression and anxiety and all those things. I missed all that along the way trying to survive. And so that's kind of how my journey began with my mental health, and that would have been around 2003 when I first started. So I'm about 13, 14 years out since I very first started therapy and being aware of my mental health challenges.
Okay.
Stop right there. So you said you first learned about your mental health condition when you were in the Air Force. Dealing with that, being in the Air Force military environment, how did you cope with it at first, and how long did it take you to go seek out that medical attention that you needed?
Well, it's interesting. I was referred from higher up that, maybe therapy would be good for you kind of thing. I didn't really know I had a problem, and I hadn't been exposed to mental health being a stigma. And I'll be 35 coming up in January. So in the 90s when I was in high school, and, mental health just wasn't something that was real big around the spaces that I were. Like I said, I was very much alone a lot of the time. So I didn't know what mental health was. So I got referred in. I didn't have to actually seek it out. But when I first started, it was it was known that, okay, this is what she needs. And so I ended up coming into therapy at once a week. So I'm going 4 times a month kind of thing. And I had to relive all the trauma that I had suppressed my entire life just to survive. And as black people, we typically are in survival mode, and that means that a lot of things that should be taken care of or acknowledged are not, because we have to survive, so we can't, waddle in our woes. And so that's kind of how my introduction into getting help started. And reliving my trauma ultimately pushed me into inpatient. So I ended up in inpatient probably about, I would say, maybe 9 to 10 months after first starting therapy. And I was inpatient for about a month. and it was up in D.C., and it was all military facilities, so it wasn't what people would see on television or think an institution is like. It was much different for me because I was in the military.
Okay. So, leading up to you going into the Air Force, when you didn't necessarily, or when you weren't necessarily fully knowledgeable about your mental health condition, can you describe for us a typical day when you're, I guess, when things were not at its best, and what were your biggest challenges leading up to you really figuring out or learning about your mental health?
What's interesting is that a typical day, I was looking at that question, and the day that I went into inpatient, this was what a typical day was, and I wasn't aware it was my typical day. But I had become so disillusioned and detached from reality, from the world that I was in, but I was functioning in it, to the point where I was working at the Pentagon. I lived in, I think, Alexandria at the time, which is about maybe 20 minutes apart. So I got off work at 4:30, got home maybe about 5. I obviously, when you're depressed, you sleep a lot. So I went to sleep. I woke up a couple hours later. I think it was about 7:30, but it was in the springtime, so it was still super bright outside, but it looked like early morning to me. I called my NCO, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm in a panic. I'm late to work. I'm so sorry. I'm getting dressed right now. I'm about to get myself to work. I'll see you in a little bit," right? Because I had to be to work at 7:30 in the morning. My supervisor says to me, he says, "Airman, it is 7:30 p.m. Mind you, I just left work 3 hours ago. I was that disillusioned and that detached that those 3 hours of sleep felt like a whole entire 24 hours to me, and I was late to work. And I bring that up because that was my typical day. I would go to work, I would go home, and I would become even more further attached, and I didn't have any awareness of self at all. I just didn't know who I was, why I existed, why I was living. And so after that 8 to 5, I went into total despair as to why do I live and who am I? And that who am I question had so much to do with the fact that I didn't know who I was as a black person. I didn't know, and when I say I didn't know who I was as a black person, in order to live, you have to have purpose, regardless of what you're going through in life. And if you don't know who you are as an individual, it's very hard to have purpose. You know what I mean? And I'm coming straight out of homelessness, straight into red tape. I'm in the Pentagon, all white people, all upper generals and high-ranking officers, very few black people I'm interacting with. It was just like a shock to me, and I think dealing with where I came from and dealing with the environment of the military and not knowing who I was and why I existed, it just really made it a typical day was just trying to understand those things, but not realizing I was trying to understand those things. And interacting with people who have mental health challenges, that's typically it's a similar story. A lot of people just don't know that they're trying to figure out something or struggle through something, and it just causes mental health issues to become worse, and the depression becomes worse, and different other symptoms and things like that just become worse. So a typical day is just either you want to sleep it away, or you want to ask so many questions as to why me, or you try to find a way to exit. And I can honestly say on this radio station that I tried to find ways to exit this earth, and I didn't do that myself. And I had a very rational reason why it would be okay to the Most High. It gets to that level, That was a typical day.
That's deep. No, that's a lot. And first of all, thank you for sharing all that, because one thing you're doing here by kind of telling your story, there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this that can relate. So hearing you tell your story, and not only tell it, but you survived it. You went and got the help, you did all that, and you're here to talk about it. That's going to be very powerful for a lot of people that may be dealing with mental health issues and things like that. So thank you for sharing all this. This is dope.
Oh, you're welcome.
If y'all don't mind, I want to ask this, because as you were talking, Jamie, you made me think of something. After the first interview we did for Mental Health Awareness, we had somebody comment, and the comment was basically saying that what's the purpose of seeking help if those around you will not take you serious or make fun of you? Being somebody who has been able to go through all the challenges that you've been through, what kind of advice would you give to someone who wants to seek help but may not seek help because of the people around them not making them feel comfortable about seeking help?
First, it's a matter of, what's important to you as an individual, and that's very hard to determine when you have mental health challenges. But seeking help is something that a person can do without not other people being aware, right? And so it becomes a situation where if you want the support of those around you, you have to know if those around you are going to support you before you tell them. Otherwise, seeking help sometimes you do have to do in private. It's something that you and that person sitting in front of you only have to experience. However, having people around you to support you is great, but no one really truly knows how to support a person that has mental health challenges. It's just not like you can take a certain regimen every day and it works. Every day is not going to be the same. You never know what someone's button might be that day, what a trigger might be. So it's just not a good situation to be in as a supportive person because you just don't know how, and it becomes intimidating to you, and then ultimately you make it harder on the person that's going through it. And we all do it because it's just a hard place. But my recommendation is to seek therapy as soon as you realize you may need it. And I'm 13 years out, and I can speak to who I would choose to sit in front of today. But 13 years ago, it didn't matter. I needed to sit in front of somebody. I needed to start the process. I needed to at least know what it was that I was dealing with and where I was going from there. So I didn't care if the person was white. I didn't care if they was black, male, female, old, young. As long as I knew they were credentialed to sit there and help me along the way, that's all that matters. So individuals need to seek help until they feel comfortable with those in their circle that they can share that with. Otherwise, it only hurts you not to seek it because you don't feel like you have support.
All right, thank you for that.
And to that, I have a question about your support. Did you have a support group when you were going through the various things you were going through?
So not at all. So when I explained to you I grew up alone, that's a real true statement. I did not get to a point where I could say I had a support system or someone I would even want to call like a friend or someone close until I was about 23 years old, and that's from birth to 23 that I had to live a life with no one to support me. Everything I've done has totally been on my own. There's been people along the way, of course, that, has touched my life. But when it comes to it, no, everything was done alone. I had to learn coping skills. I had to learn how to form healthy relationships. I never knew how to do that. I had to learn how to not be around certain people. The level of trauma I experienced and what I saw on the street was my norm. So the type of people that I would end up around would be those individuals. And as you get older in life and get more successful, you have to decide what people you're going to be around. But my norm was the street. The people that I was comfortable around were those people, and those were negative relationships. And those were the only type of relationships I knew how to form. I didn't know how to form positive relationships. I didn't know how to love me. I didn't know how to love someone else. And I didn't know if what someone was actually showing me was love or not. So, I had to figure out how to create that support system.
Now, that's like a lot of people, deal with that. They don't have that support system, and it's unfortunate you had to go, start from ground level from that. But again, people hearing this interview, they can, figure out better ways to get that support system and hopefully lose some of the issues and complications that come on with having a mental health issue. But one question, I'm going off script here. I know Joe gonna get mad at me and reel me in here in a second.
Whatever.
So, in your opinion, coming off the street, dealing with the adversity you had to do early in life, do you feel the Air Force or the military in general may have complicated your mental health, or was it a medium to actually help you get